Welcome back to the Sustainable Web3 Ecosystem series by Jarvis Labs. In the first video, you were introduced to the key piece of infrastructure responsible for more than $1 trillion of volume in 2022, the Automated Market Maker, or AMM for short. AMMs are used throughout DeFi and protocols you know well, such as Uniswap. This second video is your shorthand manual on how to not operate or use these pools. Think of it as an AMM blooper reel on pool failures and what causes them. And for those seeking to avoid operator error, stick around to the end because Rishi shares details on how you can avoid the next rug pull, whether intentional or not. That's enough for me. Let's get started.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. In case you missed our previous video on why crypto's version of the panda bear is going extinct, this video is to help all of us better understand ecosystem collapses and failures in crypto. We will go over the 3 most common forms of liquidity pool failures that take place, and if you stay to the end, we have a bit of alpha in the form of a metric you can use to better avoid the most common forms of ecosystem failure that we see in the wild. It is important to note we make reference to a term, a rug pull. It's a way to describe when a founder lays out a nice rug, in the form of adding tokens to a swap pool. This attracts crypto pandas to the rug, and then the founder removes the liquidity, aka a rug pull, injuring those that stood on the rug in the process. Now, with that quick definition out of the way, I'm asking you to do 2 things before we get into the 3 most common failures. First, if you don't quite understand how constant product AMMs like Uniswap P2 work, then watch the video titled Sustainable Web3 Ecosystems DeFi AMM to get up to speed. Second, be sure to subscribe so that we can send you future videos as they come out. Okay, to the 3 failures. The first one up is what we call the common rug pull. There's a few common traits that help us spot it. There is a lot more liquidity compared to the volume happening in the pool. The price rises as liquidity leaves. Let's dig deeper into the behaviors with a simulation between token A and Ethereum and machinations. One of the main features to go over is the low swap volume to initial liquidity ratio. In this particular case, the pool has a volume to liquidity ratio of 1 to 5%, meaning a pool of about $1 million has a swap volume between $10,000 and $50,000. This is a terrible ratio, which I promise to explain why at the end when we drop some alpha. In the meantime, you will need to take my word for it. The other trait is that the token A has realized a price increase. This price change shifts the pool into holding comparatively more of the second token, Ethereum in this case, compared to the new token. Here, remember that X times Y equation from the previous video? If users are buying more of the new token, they're depositing more of the second token, Ethereum in this example. Now here's where these conditions lead to failure. Let's say the founders who initially created the pool decide it's time to cash in or simply remove their initial liquidity because they think their pool is sustainable now. Here we see in this simulation, the founders take their initial liquidity out in around 5 time steps, bit by bit. While this happens, notice right here, price is still rising while the liquidity is taken out. It's counterintuitive. Well, this happens because the initial $10,000 to $40,000 in swap volume we mentioned earlier is now making up a larger portion of the pool volume, meaning that the swap volume to pool size is dangerously high now. We will get into this alpha later. You just need to take our word that the ratio here is dangerously high, a sign the pool is getting unsustainable. Price is rising, the founder liquidity is gone, and the pool volume to size ratio is alarmingly high. a moment where crypto's pandas, the Wojaks, the Pepes are all euphoric about the price in Discord. Then the token drops to 0. Rug complete. What is often misunderstood is that these rugs are likely the founders not knowing what they did, rugging their own community. Thanks to how Uniswap B2 pools work, as the price of the newer token gains relative to the price of Ethereum, the less newer tokens there are in the pool, and the more Ethereum there is. So when the founders or initial liquidity providers remove their capital, they bank more Ethereum than they deposited, whether intentional or not. More was gained than lost for these wrongdoers. The second scenario is what we call the sleeping whale. The characteristics of this whale is simple. A wallet owns enough supply to where if they sold, the volume would be more than 2 to 10% of the available liquidity in this pool here. With so much volume, these wallets make big waves when they decide to sell, and simply shuffling their wallets can cause a rush to exits. In fact, just causing a panic to where users start to remove liquidity before the price falls due to the whale can trigger what we hit on before, too much volume relative to pool size. If this happens, then it's at the point of no return, and as soon as the death spiral begins, the ecosystem will likely never recover from it. It's a result of poor token distribution here. As you can see, by step 100, the selling starts happening, and the price declines, while the total amount of tokens in the pool increases, and the crypto is being extracted, the Ethereum in this case. Even after 100 extra time steps, the price is never recovered. The third scenario is what we call the slumber. Unlike most rug pulls, which seem obvious, this is more of a silent killer, one that even well-intentioned founders don't realize has or is happening. These projects to a typical trader or investor look solid. Let's see in machinations how it looks like. So, after some time, the price starts to rally. It rallies at a decent rate, and after that, the price starts to trend downwards as volatility increases, and having major swings of price here, only then to crash. They don't know it, but the founders or initial liquidity providers just rug the project. How is this possible? Well, it's through a series of events. The founders, they remove their liquidity over time. This removal causes what used to be a healthy ratio between 10% swap volume to liquidity in the pool over here to something like 20 to 30% swap volume to pool size. This creates the heightened volatility in either direction you see here. Remember that curve from the last video, the x times y. So as you remove the liquidity, it takes a lot less volume to move the price of the token, regardless of the direction of trade. This ultimately leads to pool failure with a minimum chance of resuscitation over time. Now, during the last description, there were some percentages I hit on. It had to do with the alpha I alluded to before. The swap volume to the pool size can be represented as a ratio, and a ratio of 0.1 is a good rule of thumb you can use. If it gets too high, then the liquidity might be leaving. It gets too low, and your tokens aren't worth sitting in the pool in the first place. Or conditions are in place for a quick rise and pull of liquidity. Some of the work we do here at Jarvis Labs is design metrics that, like these, to help pool creators better monitor their projects and traders to find better opportunities. More importantly, we do this work so founders, project backers, and industry builders can have a better understanding of the ecosystem and design professional tooling and metrics that ultimately will help save the pandas. Thank you.